Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first YouTube live stream that we are doing for World Teen Mental Health Day, and we are very excited if you're joining us through YouTube. We are very excited for all the esteemed panelists that have joined us today for this day that we really think is so important. Just I wanted to introduce myself and then open it up to our moderator. My name is Nitisha Gilra, and I'm one of the program leads with Sky Youth Program. And with me, I have Simi and Ari, who are the program leads as well. We are the program leads for the Sky Youth Program. Sky Youth Program is a holistic program that works with kids for their physical, social, and emotional well-being from the age of 4 to 17. And this is done through yoga, through breath work, and the most important component that we have is the sky breathing exercise. And the way this whole thing came together, I was researching for our social media post on what days to pick for the month of March. And I came across a day called World Teen Mental Health Day. And I was surprised that there was a dedicated day for mental health. And that really triggered that this probably is such a big deal that we really need to, they really need to talk about it. We really need to talk about it. So I talked to my dear friend Usha that we got to do something. We got to really raise awareness about mental health. And Usha is a physician and a youth Sky Youth instructor too. Very passionate about this program. So big thank you to her for putting this panel together. She's going to be our moderator for today, and she's going to introduce all our panelists. Also, just a little bit of reference for everyone who's joining us live. We did a survey for some of our Sky Teen graduates who took the teen program and asked them how important it is to talk about mental health. 70% of them said very important. It's crucial that we talk more and more about mental health with teens. Also asking them, what should we do to raise awareness? And some of the key things that really stood out for us is, not only just talking about the problems, but having a solution, being more solution driven, about, raising awareness between parents, letting parents know about it, and also being very active on social media. So this is a small effort for us to raise awareness. And so having said that, I'm going to hand it over to Usha, who's Usha Peri, and she's going to start the evening for us.
Thank you, Nitisha. So my interest in the teen mental health happens to be not so much as being a physician, that as well, but being a mother. I raised two kids through their teenage years for two young adults now, 26 and 22. And I have many nieces, nephews, and as a Sky Youth teacher, I interact with a fair number of teens as well. And of course, my friends all have kids who went through teen years. And having seen them grow up, I still remember my daughter when she was in high school. One evening, I commented to her that, hey, your high school years are more stressful than my medical school years. I really enjoyed my medical school, never really felt much stressed. And here you are, not even in college, and you're so stressed. And her response to me was quite eye-opening to me. She's like, Mom, talk to the system, talk to my schools. I don't have much control. I know I either perform or I'm out of the game. That was tough. And I can't say that I found very many great answers for the problem, but I do have a very healthy respect for what the youth today go through. And just this whole project came about as a service project. It is what I have learned as a parent through raising my kids, through my knowledge as a physician, and having the august company of these panelists. We thought we'll do our 2 cents for the teens today and their mental health. If this program helps even one child, one parent out there, it is time well spent on all our part. I'll speak on behalf of the panel. Yeah. So with that little introduction, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists today. I will start off with Dr. Madiraju, Krishna Prasad Madiraju. We went to medical school together, Usmania Medical College in South India. Since then, this is almost 30 years ago, we're dating ourselves now. Since then, he's been to SUNY Brooklyn pediatric training program and has been in private practice in Century Pediatrics in Virginia. And he's also father for 3 young adults. Maybe one of them is still a teenager, I don't know. Yeah, obviously. So Dr. Madiraju joins us as a pediatrician with a lot of interest and experience with child mental wellness issues, including anxiety, depression, suicide, substance abuse, autism, and he does a lot of these programs in the community for community well-being. Dr. Madiraju, big hand. Thank you for joining us. Next, I move on to Vaidya Meenakshi Gupta. She is an Ayurvedic physician with a practice here in Dallas, Texas. She has her own company/practice called Ayur Roots. She's a Panchakarma specialist. As a matter of fact, I just finished my Panchakarma with her. She's also very much into giving back to the community. She's the mother of 2 young adults, 18 and 12, 2 teenagers, and is very much familiar with the issues that teens go through. She has done her master's in Ayurveda from Indian Institute of Ayurveda in Jaipur and has worked with kids with learning disabilities. So she's also familiar with neurologic conditions and kids' mental health from that perspective. So big hand to Dr. Gupta, Vaidya Gupta. Thank you for taking time and joining us today. On to Ms. Wilson, Pear Wilson. She is a licensed social worker and psychoanalytic psychotherapist working out of Los Angeles. She's been working with adults, kids, and couples, doing counseling. I'm sure this is a very busy time, post-pandemic time for you, Pear. She just finished seeing a patient and joined us today on this panel. So thank you so much for volunteering your time. And besides doing all of this, she's actually also a SKY, teen SKY youth teacher, SKY standing for Sudarshan Kriya Yoga, one of the many modalities out there for stress management using breathwork. So thank you, Pear, for volunteering your time. And last but not least, we have one of our SKY teens, Riddhi Gupta. And Riddhi is a senior in Ohio. And she has been practicing Sudarshan Kriya Yoga since age 4. A big hand to her. And she is here as a testament of how some of these practices can improve resilience and allow you to handle stresses in life. And she can pitch in her own perspective. We brought her onto the panel as a teenage perspective. Yes. So with that introductions, we'll move on and start with our first question for the evening. Mental health, right? The moment we say mental health, somehow people seem to think anxiety and depression, but really mental health is not any disease, right? Today, we're here more to talk about what is mental health and how do we preserve and maintain mental health, how to detect early conditions of deviation. Let me back up. I think a lot of the spotlight is on mental health today because of these conditions, right? There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of substance use out there, much more so in young adults. And the post-pandemic time has really magnified this problem that was there before. And I suppose these problems have shown the spotlight on what is mental health and how do we maintain mental health. So perhaps I'll start out with you, Pear, on what do you consider as optimal mental health and what are some good ways to maintain that?
Yeah, I would say a good state of mental health includes the ability to tolerate stress, and broaden one's capacity to digest negative emotions, because those negative emotions, like stress, anxiety, all of the things, especially that, kids and teens experience are going to be there. So it's just, developing a relationship with the self that, allows for a deeper conversation to occur when those feelings come up. The ability to self-soothe and make healthy choices, even, when those feelings are there, take the ability to kind of respond to those feelings and take care of the self, rather than just like an absence of negative feelings, but just like an ability to kind of look at those feelings and deal with them instead of, turning to some kind of, distraction mechanism or unhealthy.
Or worse still, probably destructive.
Yes, destructive is a good word.
Yeah. Distractive or destructive, instead of doing those two, coping in a more healthy, positive way.
Exactly.
Because I think the reality of life is the stresses and the negative emotions are going to be there.
Exactly.
Awesome. Vaidya, Meenakshi, from an Ayurvedic perspective, what would you say is mental health, optimal mental health?
So, as per Ayurveda, we say that optimal mental health is when you are able to handle the stressor. It is not separate from the Western definition. When the person is able to handle the stressors or de-stress themselves with the help of yoga, meditation, and the three pillars of the life, which is more catered towards the diet, what type of diet we are consuming, lifestyle also, and also the sleep. Everything creates the balance. And when a person is able to address and communicate in a better way that, yes, this is the issue I am dealing, and how I can distress myself or how I can communicate better to address those feelings, that is what we call as a better mental health.
Awesome. Yeah. I guess only when we're aware and in touch with what's happening on the inside, do we get that ability to actually express ourselves, whether we're asking for help and or telling our parent, hey, don't invalidate how I'm feeling. Whatever we need to express ourselves comes with the ability to be aware within ourselves, isn't it? Yeah.
That is true.
And I wonder how many, I don't know about teens or adults even, how many of us actually have learned that skill.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Madiraju, you want to pitch in anything here?
Sure. Again, I'm a pediatrician and I see children, just newborn babies who are just born, couple of days. We see them at 1 month, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months. We watch them grow. And one of the things we do, what we call a routine wellness exam, starting at a very young age. And one of the main focus is, it's just like watching a flower bloom. So when we're watching the child grow, we can catch a lot of things happening, especially things like autism can be detected as early as like 9 months to 1 year of age, just by observing the child serially. So I would say, we evaluate the mental health status of a child starting a very, very young age. And then the earliest sign of anything going wrong, we try to alert the parents. And sometimes they're in denial, and sometimes they don't want to accept that there is something going on. But we continue to reach out to these parents and ask them to reach out to all the available resources. So we can talk more about it, but we see the spectrum from birth to 21 years of age. So majority of the things that we see later on in adult life, they already started in a very young age. And if we can catch them young and prevent, Riddhi started doing Sudarshan Kriya at a very young age, the benefits that she would get would be completely different than like what we are seeing in real life now, when we are seeing so much distraction in our office rooms for both the parents and the children. So
Thank you, Dr. Madiraju. And Riddhi, feel free to pitch in anytime you want something to add, okay? Now, since we established what optimal mental health would be like, let's talk about a few of the challenges that the teens today are having. Why only teens, right? Even us adults have the same challenges. In the actually almost 25 plus years that I've been in the US, life has picked up pace, yeah? So if compared to India, where I grew up, to coming to US, the pace fastened. And even in the last 8 to 10 years, the pace has picked up quite a bit. And post-pandemic, it's just incredible. In some ways, it's an opportunity to be in the moment. And in other ways, if we're not grounded, it can really sweep us off our feet and carry us out, right? So I think the pace of life is a challenge, in my opinion, right, for the kids. The second thing is the amount of work that I see on their plates. I see it as a huge challenge as well. The third thing is the social media and the amount of connectivity, but at the same time, noise and distraction. I see it as a challenge. So we can keep adding to the challenges, but I just want to get the panel's opinion on, given these challenging times, but they're also the reality, today's reality, no matter how much we wish them to go away. Like my daughter was saying, you know, talk to the school system, make the system change if you don't want me to be so stressed, right? I don't know that we have solutions for changing the external challenges. So I just want to, you know, ask each of you your take on this mix of, yes, internally, it's the ability to feel our emotions, digest them, and be able to express them in order to maintain optimal health. But at the same time, what's coming at us is just so fast and quick and is not giving us time to do so. What are your thoughts on how to balance this out and how to still maintain optimal balance? Pear, you want to go first again?
Yeah, it's a lot of external stimuli, and it can really isolate kids and kind of pull them into, you know, a world where they're just, you know, they're on their screens a lot, or they're just like, you know, have a lot going on, but keeping it inside and not expressing it. And it just really builds up. I think they need a lot, and they need a lot from us adults, like, you know, to be there to provide that connection and model having limits and boundaries, you know, and setting aside our work and like time to make the space to just be and not do anything and go and have just conversations with each other and just hang out and connect. You know, I think that's like connection is the antidote to a lot of this, because the problem with all the work and all the screen time is just that leads to more disconnection from others and the self. So they need to be offered something. You know, it's if they can't take it if it's not there. So just being really, really aware of that and making ourselves available to them and modeling, you know, the importance of connection and just like the simple things in life. It's not about like winning and being the best or having the most followers or getting the best grades. Like, it's just about like, you know, being a good friend or having a good day and doing something fun, but just like connecting. That's how I see it.
Thank you, Pear. Vaidya, Meenakshi?
So I would add to what the pair already said, that the feeling of connection or the connectedness needs to be there. And to go in that, the communication is very important tool. And that has to be open and mindful communication, because teens, they have, in Ayurveda, we say that they have high pitta also. Their emotions, pitta is related to the hormones also, and their digestion also. So we have to see in a broader way that how their diet is, and if we are able to correct the diet, because if you see that teens these days have the type of food which hampers the digestion or the gut microbiome, and we know that the gut is directly related to the mental health as well. So digestion is the key factor. We need to talk to them regarding that, and the openness and the mindful conversation which we can do with the kids, letting them have the control of that conversation, because teens at that age want the control. So when we let them have the control and do the communication, then we can make them understand the pros and cons of the using the excessive social media, which creates a lot of mental health issue, because they want to have a followers, or they want to have a what we say that the acceptance from their peer group. So in that way, if we address those issues, I think then it will be good for win-win situation for parents and the teens.
Thank you, Vaidya. Meenakshi. Riddhi, do you want to pitch in here? You're going through it. We're only talking about someone like you, right? So you should talk.
Yeah, definitely social connection, feeling the ability that we can share things with, whether it's our parents, our teachers, anyone that we trust. That is really important. And then our diet. And one more thing that I notice is breath work as well, because I've been doing sky breathing for such a long time. And even if you don't take sky breathing, if you take something as simple as a victory breath, which just takes 1 or 2 minutes to do, it helps us so much. Like in my school, we were doing happiness club and we were teaching these techniques to friends and peers. And after that, they gave the feedback that they've started using it before their exams and before sporting events, like really stressful times. You know, the anxiety is at the highest at those times. And they just take a couple of straw breaths or a few victory breaths, and suddenly they get the nerves down. And people have said, students have said that it improved their score as well, because let's say we're in an exam and we are really panic stricken. We cannot really think, even though we have everything prepared. There's this moment of blank out. Oh my God, what did I prepare? I've forgotten everything. Those kind of panic things happen, and breath work does such a good job in diminishing those effects and in helping us do our best. So that, along with connection and diet that the panelists were talking about, I think are really important tools for us.
Thank you, Riddhi. Yes. And just as a physician, if I may tie in these things that the three panelists have said thus far, the stress is the fight or flight response in our body, the hormones, right? The adrenaline and cortisol hormones. And you can almost imagine a tiger chasing you and the body language that happens, right? The muscles tighten and the heart beat fastens and you're on the run. So that's the mode in which most of the teens are operating these days. It's like there's a tiger constantly chasing them. When you do a breath, the victory breath that Riddhi was talking about, the Sudarshan Kriya, what it does is it actually stimulates the vagal nerve. And then the whole body goes into a relaxation response, the rest or digest mode. It's also the restful alertness mode. So you have it, it's just under your nose, right? A breath away. So it's not something that you have to invest any money in. You don't have to go to the store to buy it. It doesn't require any time. It's right there under your nose. So you're able to, by regulating your breath, you can just move from being the stressed state into a relaxed state. And in a relaxed state, it's quite obvious to say that you make better choices, isn't it? You're more responsive as opposed to reactive. And, so that's the value of breath, like Riddhi was talking about. And the same thing with diet and gut microbiome, like Vaidya Meenakshi was mentioning, the hormones and the neurotransmitters in the brain, they're all much better aligned, right? And connection as well actually works on the hormones in the body. And it's a huge thing. The so-called social connectivity on the social media is not true connection, isn't it? The warm, touchy-feely is the old-fashioned way of connection is what really matters. And I think these are great. Dr. Madiraju, your input here, sir.
Sure. So the teen brain is a unique thing. What happens is their frontal lobe, which is the place where your intellect is controlled, where it's a higher intellectual functions are developing, that is slow to develop. Whereas the other portions of the brain are developed and their physical strength is getting better. Their hormones are raging. They want to make connections with friends. The friends mean the world to them. So that's why teenagers, what they're going through, it's very difficult for us to comprehend. So at that stage, let's say they have a good coping mechanism when they're going through stress. If they can talk to a true friend, or if they can sing to themselves, or they can listen to some nice music and calm themselves down of a tough situation, that's a welcome thing. That's a positive response. Whereas if they resort to like something like alcohol or marijuana or any of the drugs, they're getting instant gratification, and it may reinforce their need on that thing. So instead of developing good positive things, they will be now resorting to the other things. So the pressure which is put by the schools in like cramming up a lot of stuff, weekly tests which most students have, at the end of, by Friday they have to take a test. Every Friday there is a test. So it's like constantly being under the gun. So that puts a lot of pressure on what Dr. Usha was telling us. It's called HPA axis, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So normally when you are under stress, the cortisol is increased. But in children nowadays, teenagers, there's uncontrolled production of this cortisol hormone. As a result of this, the natural feedback mechanisms which is happening in your brain is cut off, and it leads to destruction of your natural neurotransmitters, which are important in the brain. When these neurotransmitters are destroyed, it will lead to impulsivity and pessimism, and it leads to depression. That's like one of the mechanisms. Chronic stress is a major role. Now, where does the children get this chronic stress from? Let's say they are on their iPads or looking at their phones all day long. An average teenager looks at their phone for hours on. So, or like kids play video games, for example, they are being under the constant stress of being shot at, and they are trying to run away from the situation. So this creates like a chronic stress, and this will really upset this entire neurotransmitter system. And that's the mechanism how it is happening. So media usage is directly proportional to mental health issues. That's the take-home message.
Thank you, Dr. Madiraju. I'm sure there's some questions coming into the live chat, Nitisha. Before we go on to the questions, there are two more topics that I really want to touch on. One is the influence of parents, right? I think it's a big influence, and the way we parent, there's a fair number of Indian parents around here, and I'll speak for myself. We come from a different culture and different time. And we come to this country and we're raising kids in a different culture and different times. And I have seen a fair amount of mismatch and a fair amount of angst in the Indian households that I am attached with. And I believe it's not an uncommon occurrence. So I just want to take a moment to talk about this mismatch and the importance of parents understanding the teens and the match. And I'm sure this probably happens in other cultures as well. Pear, would you mind making a comment on these influences for the children and how they impact their mental health?
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about something that I've heard Sri Sri Ravi Shankar say, which is, general guidance that after your child is 16, to start relating to them as a friend. And I think that's like very, very crucial, important advice. Like I see parents kind of being way too serious with their kids, like way too clamped down on how their kid is doing, and are they performing well, and how are they doing on their tests, and are they like all this, very serious micromanagement or a lot of like intense concern. And it doesn't help kids feel close to their parent, and that's what they really need. They just need kind of like a loving, normal, reflexive relationship. So that's, I think, the main thing I see is just like the importance to lighten up and like have fun with your kids. And even if they're going through a hard time, I think parents can worry too much about that. But it's like they're teenagers and they're going to be going through a hard time. Like they're going to be going through something, and they're already so hard on themselves. Like that's such a feature of like adolescents and teenagers that I think gets overlooked, because it can seem like they don't care or they're rebelling, but they actually are so hard on themselves, actually. And if they are rebelling, it's because they need to get away from that pressure. So not being hard on them and helping them feel better about their problem, not worse, and just making so much time for quality time. Like, can't underrate that. Like going to the movies, just being like, what do you want to do? What would be fun? And that also is what gets them away from screens and like negative, social dynamics that might be happening for them.
Sure. Thank you, Pear. Part of what you said, the seriousness around parenting has to do with parental concern, their own fears. And I'm not quite sure if the parents are aware of that, how their fears are now being projected onto the children and are becoming a burden for the children, right? So I encourage the audience to watch that for themselves if there are parents in the audience. But thanks for that very sane advice. How about Vaidya, Meenakshi, Dr. Madiraju?
So I will say that we all grew up with certain beliefs. And as you said, Dr. Usha, that not necessarily those beliefs are still valuable right now because we are in the different era and the generational gap also. When I was growing up, the system was different. There was no social media. And we never looked for the acceptance from the society because everything revolves around either the sibling or the parents. But now the social media plays an important role. So there is one word we say that in Ayurveda is a conscious parenting, where openness, connectedness, quality time with the kid is very, very important. They need to hear from you that you will be there no matter if they make a mistake, and they can come to you openly and tell them, and you won't react always in the negative way or not judge them, because that is very, very important aspect. Then only the kids they trust their parents, but at certain stages, if we keep on telling them certain things, then they afraid to tell us the truth. And that can be detrimental to their physical health as well as the mental health. And that put under the lot of drug abuse or the other social media abuse. All those things can crop up if we are not giving them a safe space as a parent to come and talk to us openly.
Thank you, Meenakshi. Vaidya, you have something to say?
Yeah, sure. I completely agree with that. Spending quality time, because I was lucky I had the best parents ever. I have no complaints. And what they did, they always had time for me, even though they were really busy in work. If there was something, whether it was school related, if I wanted to learn something new, or if I wanted to talk to them, they were always there for me. And I think that developed a good trust and a relationship. And another thing, I think they were a really good balance of strict and lean. They weren't like go do whatever you want, like that lean, but they weren't strict as to they were monitoring each and everything that I was doing. So I found that balance really helpful. So they would advise me what the right things were, but they would also leave the decision to me. So I think some of those things really helped me as a teen to not feel pressurized and really overwhelmed by the stuff going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Vaidya. Dr. Madiraju, I have a different question for you.
Okay, good.
In interest of time,
Sure.
utilizing your expertise, and that has to do with, you mentioned earlier that the taboo that's associated with some denial, some non-acceptance. So we've established that the post-pandemic era and the current stresses are creating some mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies, substance use, and that the acceptance of these in society in general among parents is not very high. It's still considered very taboo, a lot of these diagnoses. So how do you break that taboo, and what type of tips do you give parents if they're suspecting of this, how to talk to the child or how to talk to the pediatrician, how to get help?
So thanks, Dr. Usha. So in most communities, I would not say just Indian communities, there is a big taboo to talk about mental health conditions. It's not acceptable. Sometimes parents feel that by not talking about something, it will go away. So, which is not the case. The teenagers, they want to talk about it, but as Meenakshi ji said, they don't want to be judged. So the best way to do is like find a comfortable setting at home and then try to talk to your own teenager in a non-threatening way and non-judgmental way, which is very tough for most parents, especially Indian parents, because we bring all those things back from India, our values, and they try to rub it onto the children. They live in a different society. The stress that they face is unimaginable. The social isolation they face is unimaginable. So calm down, take nice deep breaths when the kid is telling. But when I spoke to my daughter, she told me that when they are talking, they don't want you to talk. They don't want you to give a solution to their problem. They just want you to be like somewhere they could sound off their things. So active listening, paraphrasing what they're saying. So I understand that you're going through a tough time. So what else? So just be there as a patient listener. And I think the active listening is very, very important, that skill that parents should learn. And also, don't offer any advice, just listen to them. And I always say this, like mental health problems get their power from secrecy. The moment you say that I have a problem and declare it to your family, right, 50% of the problem is gone. In fact, like anything, and because people will be ready to help you, like oh, you don't want grandmother to know, or you don't want uncle to know, I don't want my husband to know. But by you are isolating yourself. Whereas if you come up front and tell them in the family, say that, look, I'm facing a challenge, can you help me? If the teenager and or the parent declares to everybody, then you have recruited or harnessed the power of the entire family. Each and every single grandma or grandpa, they have lived a lot of life. I mean, they are even better than parents. So their experience, they can bring it and say, better, like you, we have gone through something like this, and they can put in so much valuable help. And it's very easy nowadays. You bring the child to the physician, pediatrician, or family doctor. We have nice screening tools which can identify what the child is going through. And most of these treatments, including substance abuse, the worst case scenario. Yesterday, for example, I had a parent reached out to me and they said, Doc, we want you to come over to our house for dinner. All right. And they said, oh, yeah, how is your kid doing? I was asking, and they said, like, our kid, this kid had gone through the worst drug addiction, in college, almost dropped out of medical school. He got admission into a medical school. He dropped out of medical school because he got addicted to alcohol and then marijuana and drugs. He even became schizophrenic. He left his job. Even from that stage, excellent psychologists and psychiatrists with proper treatments, we can pull those kids out, okay, with the techniques that social our things. So the bottom line message is there are wonderful treatments available. Just open up and talk, and if you ask, help will be given.
Thank you, Dr. Madiraju. Looks like we're beginning to get lots of questions from the YouTube live chat. So Ari, you put them in the chat here, right? Let me take them. Hang on, there is chat.
Yeah, I can announce if you want.
Please, could you?
Sure. The first question from the audience is how to set boundaries for screen times for kids is becoming challenging.
Who wants to take that? Pear, Dr. Madiraju, maybe both.
I can just chime in and then maybe Pear can. So why are they resorting in the beginning? Why are they resorting to looking at the social media? I think if we can provide the children with an open mind, open audience from the parents, and we can find something which, like, for example, Sudarshan Kriya. Suppose someone is doing Sudarshan Kriya for half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening. That's 1 hour they are away from screen time. So this is just my 2 cents on it. Like, find something more meaningful than social media. If you go to the kid and say, honey, you're not going to watch social media more than 1 hour, they'll say, what else? What do you want me to do, mom? The first thing I have heard teenagers say is, I am bored. That's the word they use. I'm bored. So you engage them, engage, give value to their time. If they have 5 minutes, that's enough. In that 5 minutes, you talk to them and make them interested in your life. Talk to them of what happened to you when you were their age. So all those things, make it more interesting. Become interesting person to your own child. If you can do that, they don't need to resort to social media for acceptance or anything else. So
Thank you, Dr. Madiraju. Pear, anything you want to add?
Well, I'm not a parent, so I don't feel like an expert on this, and I don't look forward to navigating this if and when I become a parent. I really feel for you all. But yeah, I think you have to just do your best and not be too hard on yourself, and accept the situation as it is to some extent. And yeah, try to, like, exactly, I agree, like, just provide positive value, provide like an alternative, like be there, be available for a relationship. I loved what you were saying, Dr. Madiraju, about active listening. Like, just like learn how to be a good communicator with your child, like learn how to be a good friend. And because they have a lot going on inside, and whether they're on screens or not, or no matter how long they're spending on the screens, it's immaterial in a sense to the needs that they have when they are not looking at the screen, which is like to have someone to talk to and a loving, open person that's available to them.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, Ari?
Yeah. One other question. There was a comment about something being said at that point in time, but I don't know the reference anymore. So if anybody who asked about what about children starting ages 13 can add what they were referring to, we can answer that question. But there was one other question that was posted, and it was, as a parent, how can we support and help?
I think a fair amount of that has been discussed in terms of that the active listening, the willingness to be there, present, loving, like Vaidya was saying, strict, yet the right amount of strictness and the right amount of leanness, the communication skills that we talked about, and the setting boundaries, right? So some of those have been alluded to in the discussion. Not quite sure if
one more thing I would like to add, Dr. Shah, is like Indian parents and most cultures also, they have a taboo against using medications. If your child needs a medication, if the doctor, like a child psychiatrist, has evaluated your child and has given you a diagnosis and is asking your child to take a medicine, if the doctor says take one pill twice a day, don't by yourself think, oh, should my child be on this medicine starting such a young age? Maybe I'll cut it into half a pill, and I'll give it twice a day, or I will do it every other day. Just please follow what the doctor has in his mind. We see this very, very commonly. Don't try to read the doctor and try to do your own treatment on your child. You've gone to an expert. Let's say you've gone to a psychologist, and psychologist is giving you some advice. Please follow their advice. But you're seeing a psychiatrist, and they have a plan of action in their mind. They will say, okay, come back and see me in 2 months. Go back and see them in 2 months. Give the medicine a chance to work. Yes, you can taper it off. You don't need to be on these medicines for your whole life, but give the child a chance, because research has proven time and again, if you are on medication, definitely your chances of survival is increased. The risk of suicide is decreased drastically if someone is on medication. Now, the ancillary things are equally important. I'm not saying they're not important. Actually, I think they are more important than the medication. But the medicine, what it'll do is it'll give some time for the other things, like to work. Let's say we are doing meditation will take some time, doing constantly over a period of time. It is like putting someone on cholesterol lowering medication to prevent their immediate risk of heart attack. Most people say, oh, I just want to like diet and exercise. You can reduce cholesterol through diet and exercise over a long period of time, but at least your immediate risk is reduced. So please don't hesitate to take, and if you need advice, you can reach out to experts and they can guide you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Madiraju, for that sane advice. So along those lines, I'll ask Vaidya Meenakshi a question about the diet. You alluded to diet for the teenagers. What are some of the do's and what are some of the don'ts?
So in Ayurveda, we say that every age has a stages of life, and the teens are in the Pitta stage of life. Pitta is related to the fire and water component of 5 elements. And the diet needs to be catered towards where it creates the Pitta balanced rather than the imbalance. So if you are, for example, Pitta can get aggravated with the spicy food, with the tangy food, with the food which is having the citrus component, hot spices. And if we can control those, and cooling breath, we are talking about the Sudarshan Kriya and the breath work. So cooling breath also helps with that, balancing the Pitta. So in that way, if we can have little bit of diet component and the cooling breath component, in that way also it can help the teenager a lot when it comes to the mental health. And in addition to, I would say that as a parent also, that spending a quality time, when we say that sometimes we get so angry that we don't listen to our kids. So set a boundaries in such a way that the boundaries are for you also and for your kid also. It's not only for the kids, it's for the parents also. I remember when my older one, who is now 18-year-old, still we do that when she comes into the town. What we do every week, one day we set up, since she turned 12 from there, and Friday evening, we used to go on the long drive. I let her control. The only rule we set is no phone. You control the music. You want whichever drink you want, coffee, teas, we will pick it up, play the music, let's talk. And the only thing I did is listening to her. And gradually, by adapting that, just to that, and she started opening up. And we still love that 3-4 hour of long drive inside the Dallas area just to talk to her. And that way also you can build up one ritual for your family, whatever works for you, so that the kid can open up with you.
Thank you, Meenakshi. Looks like there's a question for you. It says, how do you incorporate Ayurveda in kids' lives when they're already busy eating at odd times?
I know the kids,
what we just talking about.
Yeah, the kids, yes, the time we cannot control because they eat at the odd times because of their classes, structure, and a lot of tests and a lot of other extracurricular activities. But if we can provide at least 2 nutrition meal, balanced meal, that will be helpful. We know that when they go to the school, we cannot control the meal part. Whatever they are provided by the cafeteria, they prefer to have that. But when they are at home, make sure that they have the balanced breakfast and balanced dinner. And that time, I know that we say that in the Western world that is the time to communicate. But if you can let the stomach, mouth, hand, and brain get connected, having the peaceful meal with your kid, and that also helps. So in that way, we can create the better environment for the kids.
So you're recommending not much conversation, more focus on eating.
Exactly.
And oftentimes the conversations can get heated as well. So perhaps better not to have those heated conversations. And yes, there's a lot to be said, as a matter of fact, on focusing on food and on the digestion. So that process has its own sanctity. Thank you. Thank you, Meenakshi. We're towards the last 10 minutes of the program. Anything that any of the panelists are feeling a strong desire to say at this point? I think we've been through a lot of a broad variety of topics in terms of what is mental health, the ability to process emotions in a healthy way instead of through distractions or destructive ways. And we talked about what those might look like, breath work, the Ayurvedic tips of eating healthy, and in case things are not going well, how to detect them. If you have any sense that things are not going well, the ability to ask for help. And that, like Dr. Madiraju made a very beautiful comment about secrecy enhances the mental illness. So there is no taboo, and just asking for help is all we need to do when it comes, right? So those are my takeaways from this evening's discussion. Yes, Dr. Madiraju.
I just want to add, if parents can remember the word seeds, SEEDS. The first S stands for sleep. Sleep is of paramount importance. Children need more sleep than adults, at least 8 hours of sleep. None of the teenagers are getting sleep. Lack of sleep can lead to a lot of mental health problems. It can lead to anxiety, it can lead to panic, even panic attacks, it can lead to depression. So sleep. So what I propose is take a calendar and put seeds on one end, on one axis, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Let the teenager grade themselves from 0 to 5, how good their sleep was on Monday. Is it out of 5? Is it 1, or is it 2, 3, 4, 5? So visually they can see how their sleep is over a 1 week period, from just the whole Sunday to Sunday, right? Then the second E is eating. Are they eating too little or eating too much? They should be conscious of what they're eating. Same again, grade yourself. Have you been eating healthy, or are you been eating the kind of food, as Meenakshi ji said, the kind of food that we eat, the more processed foods you eat, the more it hurts your brain. That's what we see in our practice. The less processed food, less mainly simple foods which doesn't have too many chemicals, the better it is. Then the third E is exercise. Exercise is the best medicine, one of the best medicines to ward away or to prevent mental health issues. So again, if someone does exercise every single day, definitely they'll have less mental health issues, and they should grade themselves and see, like, on a scale of 0 to 5, what number I want to give myself. The fourth is D, drugs. Average adult in in our country, on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday has to drink. They cannot think of anything else other than having a cup of wine. Can you stay away from drinking alcohol? Do you need alcohol to be happy? So this is something that we need to think of. Alcohol is a drug. We have to accept it. In college campuses, sometimes children meaning teenagers, drink from Thursday night till almost Sunday night. They get wasted by the time the weekend is over. And now these people, when they go back to the work the Monday, again, they're going to have this high, and then they'll have hangover. So they're cycling through happiness and sadness just in a week's period of time. So grade it. How dependent are you on drugs? How good are you doing on drugs? Any drug. It could be cigarette, it could be alcohol, it could be marijuana, anything. Okay, grade yourself on that. The final S is silence. How much time are you spending in nature without talking per day? Are you spending like 5 minutes, just thinking about your thoughts? So give this tangible tool to the children and to the parents, and see what happens. We can do wonders. And we have something objective, not just subjective. We have objective, and compare week by week and see like how we are doing. Just seeing the wonderful dog, and then maybe they can reward themselves. Suppose they did excellent in exercise one week, they can put a star on that week and say that, so that way when they look at the entire year, they will see that, yes, in these 5 areas I'm doing it. So this is a practical tip for prevention and maintaining mental health.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Madiraju. And I think we are coming towards the end of the panel discussion tonight, and I'll hand it back to our Sky Youth team, Nitisha, Sini, and Ari, to close the discussion out.
Absolutely. I want to thank all the, on behalf of all of us, want to thank all the panelists for joining us today. You did an amazing job. I want to shout out to all the participants watching this, whether it be live or the recording. Feel free to subscribe to this channel. This is part of an ongoing series of content that we'll be sharing with you. If you have any suggestions for topics, please inform us either directly in the chat here in this session or offline as well. Thank you again. We'll be posting some helpful links in the chat and sharing the recording, which will have access to the chat messages as well after this session closes. Have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever you are in the world, and be blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. Are we still live, Ari?
Looks like it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just add that thank you so much for spending your evening with us and on this special day. That's the Teen Mental Health Day.